Hello to all of you introverted misfits who are tuning into this episode of the Introverted Misfit podcast. First things first, I am finally back home from my extended trip to Texas, where I spent some time, probably about 3 weeks, nearly a month, with my sister and her family in the lead up to the birth of my nephew, or my newest nephew, because I already have one. And I actually got to witness the birth of my newest nephew, which was a really new experience for me. Nothing like I've ever seen before. And all I can say is, wow. I feel like I got to witness one of nature's greatest miracles. I've never seen anything like that before. And I have a newfound respect for mothers and nurses in general, but particularly labor and delivery nurses, because I don't think I could ever do what they do. I actually got a little lightheaded towards the beginning of all of the action happening. And I had to sit down and gather myself before I could keep watching. But once I did get myself together and was able to watch this little baby be born, it was such an amazing thing to witness. And then yesterday, I ran my very first 5K with one of my cousins. It was the I Am a Father 5K in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, I really should say that I walked my first 5K, not ran. I didn't even walk it. I pretty much walked it. I jogged the last stretch just to say that I ran a little bit. But I did a lot more fast walking than running. And it was perfect weather. It was a lot of fun, a lot of music, lots of dancing, a lot of cool people that I got to meet. And now I'm back home. So it is back to business as usual. Which brings me to the main topic of this week's podcast episode: setbacks in life and how to overcome them. Have you ever been doing really well in a certain area of your life, only to one day backslide and fall back into old ways and old habits, and you find yourself right back where you started? That certainly happened to me a few times. About 4 years ago, in 2021, I injured my lower back pretty badly. And I wasn't doing anything crazy, like weightlifting some insane amount. I was actually doing something that you and many other people do every day: sitting. Sitting down for way too long while having very poor posture. I have a desk job after all. Well, I began to notice that my lower back was starting to hurt really badly over a period of about a month or so. And then the straw that broke the camel's back happened when I tried to lift something heavy. It was a potted cucumber plant that had about 10 gallons of soil in it. And it was like something snapped or broke. Not literally, like I didn't literally hear something break in my back. That would be awful. But it was almost like a sudden jolt of pain that I felt. And from that point on, the pain really started to become unbearable. For months, it felt like someone stuck a knife in my spine and just left it there. I couldn't stand up for more than a couple of hours or sit down for more than 30 minutes before my back would start burning. So some more months pass, and it does get better slowly but surely. And I do mean slowly, because I don't know if y'all know anything about the spine and spinal discs, but I have spent a lot of research. When I was in uh, the peak of my pain, I was frantically searching online for answers, and I had learned that apparently there's very little blood supply flow that occurs naturally to your spinal discs, which are between your spinal vertebrae, which means that disc injuries take a lot longer to heal completely. It takes longer than, say, a paper cut or something like that, where there's going to be a lot of blood flow to that area. So, of course, I think I'm doing good once the pain has mostly gone away, or at least significantly gotten better, and I get a little bit ahead of myself. And what do? I try to move a very heavy tree limb that a storm left in my backyard. And to make things worse, I was not properly hinging from my hips to protect my back. You know how you're supposed to, or you're not supposed to round your back when you're lifting or dragging something heavy? I was rounding it way too much because the limb was very heavy. The next day, I immediately regretted my decision. Because when I tell you, after 8 months of my body doing its best to heal, I ruined it in just 30 minutes of yard work with improper lifting form. I felt like such an idiot because now I had to repeat that healing process over again for nearly a year. I had to invest in a standing desk to do my work because standing and moving around was the best way to manage my pain at the time. And I think there was, or actually, yes, there was one more incident after the tree limb incident that interrupted the healing process again. But the picture I'm trying to paint here is that something that should have taken maybe a solid year to fully heal ended up taking almost 4 years on and off, all because I kept getting too ahead of myself, say, too cocky too soon, and I thought that I could do more than I actually could. I fell into the illusion of lasting change. The illusion of lasting change is the myth that everything will be all well and good all of the time without you having to constantly work on it and be smart about the decisions you make. Believing this myth is what causes us to slack off on things that we should be doing, and then we wonder why our life isn't changing or is getting worse. Regarding my lower back, there was really no good reason for me to believe that my back would remain permanently healed if I was just going to continue doing those bad habits of sitting too long, having poor posture, not taking standing breaks, not getting any exercise to strengthen my back, and lifting and doing yard work with improper form. And that's how I think that other setbacks in life work too. You're doing really well and improving in one area of your life, or maybe you're just nailing life in general. But then something happens that lets you know this could all go downhill again if you are not careful. Whatever it is, maybe you're trying to quit drinking or smoking. Maybe you're trying to maintain those healthy lifestyle changes that you made for New Year's so that you don't completely fall off the wagon. Maybe you're trying to fix your relationship or your marriage. It could be anything. One too many steps in the wrong direction, and you'll start to see things get worse. Now, at this point, some of you listening may be thinking, this is kind of a doom and gloom message. I don't want to hear about how the good things in my life can be taken away from me. But, misfits, this is reality, and reality must be dealt with. Besides, I think this message can be an encouraging reminder that you have more control over the trajectory of your own life than you think. It's like those motivational speakers you hear say success is not linear, or those therapists that you hear say mental health progress is not linear. I certainly know a lot about that as someone who struggled with social anxiety, which I'll get to a little later in this episode. But all of that stuff is true. If you want a certain type of life or you have a long term goal that you want to accomplish, you cannot let temporary setbacks get in the way of your overall long term success. As I'm talking about setbacks, I'm reminded of a story of resilience that recently occurred in my family's life, and that is technically still going on. Earlier this month, May 7th, or not earlier this month, earlier last month, May 7th, 2025 to be exact, my mom completed her final round of chemotherapy and radiation. She found out that she had stage 2 breast cancer in October of 2024, which has been such a rain cloud over our entire family. I actually remember when she first sat us all down on the porch to tell us about her diagnosis, and I was in such shock that I was speechless. All I could do was stare at the floor in disbelief. You never think it can happen to you or your loved ones until it actually does. In addition to being a major health scare for her, it put quite a damper on my mom's retirement plans because she had already been retired for a few months at the time of her diagnosis. And she and my dad were really looking forward to enjoying her new free time. And then she got cancer, something that I think no one is ever prepared to hear. It was one of the biggest setbacks of her and our lives. That entire 8 month period of chemo and radiation was full of many lows. The trips to the ER when she got sick between treatments, the weakness and depression, and of course, that dreaded moment when her hair started to come out. But I think the most admirable thing that I got to witness along her journey was her perseverance in the face of something so terrible. On the days that she could manage to stand up and walk around, she tried to do everything in her daily life to the best of her ability. Cook, exercise, go for a walk when she felt like it and when it wasn't too hot outside or too cold, and try to stay busy. And doing that really kept her mind occupied and it kept her spirits up. Her story is a beautiful reminder of how things can be going along really well for you, and then one day that can all change for the worse, unexpectedly. And somehow you've got to pick up the pieces and keep moving forward. Otherwise, that setback will turn your life upside down. So, how can you stay motivated during these setbacks? I want to focus on three important things that I think you need: community, perseverance, and the ability to keep your eyes on the prize. The first one, community. Having the right community, good people in your corner, is one of the most important things in life that cannot be overstated, especially when it comes to enduring life's setbacks. When you are going through those low moments in life, it is so encouraging to have someone in your life who understands you, cares about what you're going through intimately, and doesn't mind helping you out when they can. It really keeps you going. Setbacks are unavoidable. They are going to happen to all of us at one point or another. And when they do, your community is going to keep you going. They're going to give you a word of encouragement, a hug if you're into hugs, a pick me up, and sometimes just a listening ear. Sometimes it's not just the feel good stuff that they can offer you, it's actually the more practical and tangible things as well. So I remember listening to a podcast episode a few years back, where this woman was talking about her experience with being laid off during the COVID-19 shutdowns. And do you want to know how she ended up finding another job? It was through her network, her professional community. Over her corporate career, she had built up a network of professionals. And so when she needed a new job, she started asking around, and someone was able to put her in touch with someone else who happened to be hiring. And as an entrepreneur myself, or really as a solopreneur, I can admit that I greatly underestimated the importance of networking, especially early on in my entrepreneurial journey. I would even say that I was a little bit delusional because I had never really been exposed to the world of owning a business, but I had this completely false idea that I could just start a business, put a website up, make some business cards, and the clients would come find me. That is not how it works, as I found out after about a year of starting my brand. And as soon as I started to network and go to conferences, go to local events, and actually talk to people about my business and my experience, that's when I saw things start to change for me. I had finally realized the true value of a strong community and a strong network of not just professionals, but of people. Because People know people. People know people who you don't know. And you never know when those people who you haven't met yet are the type of people who can help you out, not just in business, but in life, just in general. Maybe if you're going through a divorce and you need help finding a good divorce attorney or maybe a coach who can help you with the emotional battles that happen during a divorce. Something like that, something personal like that. A network can really put you in contact with people who can help you through those setbacks. So the point is, whatever setback you're going through, you do not want to go through it all alone. It's unnatural. I strongly believe that we are designed to live life with help and with a supportive community beside us. Life is already hard enough, so why would you want to do it all alone? Number two, perseverance. Cliche, I know, but it's true. The ability to keep going in the face of difficulty. You can't go over it, you can't go around it, you have to go through it. And that takes perseverance. My lower back pain is a lot better now and is still on the mend from my most recent setback, which was about 9 months ago. But I remember when it was still freshly injured, or should I say, freshly re injured. And that was some of the worst pain that I've ever felt in my life. And there was literally nothing I could do to escape it for at least 1 month. In fact, on the way to my doctor's appointments, I had to lay down in the back seat of the car while my mom drove me because sitting down for longer than 30 minutes was unbearable. And for that month, where the wound was still fresh, I kind of just had to deal with the pain, deal with it until the pain lessened to a point where I could manage I could manage the pain without having to constantly stand up and walk around or lay down. And then over the period of about 9 months, the intensity lessened and lessened. I wouldn't have been able to do that without a strong mental state that helped me push through those hardest early months when the pain was as intense as it was going to get. And the willpower to do what needed to be done right then so that things would get better for me in the future. Which leads me to my third and final point. Number three, keeping your eyes on the prize. You have to know that there is something better for you on the other side of this setback. In my mom's case, one of the main reasons that she was able to persevere through that awful battle with cancer was because she knew at the end of it would be life and hopefully a cancer-free status so that she could live out the rest of her life in retirement, enjoying her grandkids, her family, vacations, and everything else that life has to offer. When I was trying to make it through that back pain while it was at its worst, I still had to move around, do laundry, do dishes, clean up, and do the spine stabilization and strengthening exercises that my doctor had recommended. Because I knew from talking to my doctor that if I just laid down and sat around all day because of the pain, it would ultimately make the problem worse because I would be weakening my back muscles and my overall muscles. So I had to keep that final goal in mind. The final goal being a life free from chronic back pain and a much stronger back so that the problem didn't keep happening over and over again. So every time I had to pick something up from the floor or do my daily chores or anything that required me to bend forward, I had to be very mindful about keeping my spine and my core straight and hinging from my hips. And it was so annoying to have to constantly think about my lifting form. And for a while, it seemed kind of pointless because there was no immediate gratification for those first few months. The pain took a long time to considerably get better, but I just kept my eyes on the prize. And I'd say that it's paying off all these months later. It's still not completely healed because I learned my lesson last time about doing too much too soon, but it is getting there. That is how I believe you can overcome the various setbacks that happen in life and how you can avoid being fooled by this illusion of lasting change. There are a lot of negative people who like to say good things never last. You know, those people who are on their second or third divorce and they just can't seem to find love or make relationships work. Or those people who are jealous of you and your accomplishments. So they try to convince you that it's never going to last. You're going to fail eventually. Well, I think good things can last when you are intentional about making them last. Barring a few exceptions, of course. There are exceptions to every rule, but generally, the good things in your life, the positive changes that you make, can and will last if you are intentional about making them last. And if you don't fall into that illusion of lasting change. If you're doing the actions every day, every week, every month that are necessary to sustain your life and your accomplishments, and overcome the temporary setbacks that will inevitably happen, you can live a very content, dare I say, happy life. Even if it's a setback that you have no real control over, like my mom's cancer diagnosis. You do the best you can with the cards that you're dealt, and you keep going. All of this talk about setbacks reminds me of my pretty long journey of overcoming social anxiety. That journey did not look like a straight upward line. It looked more like a squiggly line that eventually led upward until I no longer had social anxiety. But there were so many ups and downs during that 2 year period. There were periods of time when I would be more fearless than others when it came to talking to people and putting myself in social settings. But then there were other times when I would regress and go right back to avoiding social interactions. And I don't really know why. It just happens sometimes. I guess you could call it growing pains. I pushed through the growing pains and eventually came out on the other side being much more socially confident, even while being an introverted misfit. And would you believe me if I told you that even nowadays, there are periods of time when I go a long time, weeks, or maybe even a month without talking to someone other than my mom and my dad, especially since I work from home. And sometimes when I have an event to go to for my business or just to be social or even with my full-time job, I notice that I feel kind of nervous about going to the event. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, didn't I already get over this? I no longer have social anxiety. Why am I getting nervous about this again? But that's when I decide to make a commitment to going to the event and talking to people. And I realized that I was getting all scared and worked up for nothing. And it was just me starting to fall back into those old patterns of avoiding social interactions. So believe me when I tell you that lasting change with no work really is an illusion, a fairy tale. If you grew up in church or in a Christian household like I did, you've probably heard the Bible verse, faith without works is dead, which essentially means you can have all of the faith and hope that you want to have, but if you're not doing the work to make it happen, it's useless. Now, maybe you're a really shy and awkward introvert who's tired of wishing, hoping, and praying that things get better. You're tired of thinking, why doesn't anyone want to talk to me or be my friend? And you're tired of living a life of seclusion with no friends, no quality dating prospects, and no social connections. Well, the good news is, introverted misfit, that you can create a social life that works for your wants and needs without having to fake being someone you're not. But it's not going to happen without some hard work and consistency. If you think you could use some guidance along your social confidence journey, I can help you with that. Make sure to book your free connection call with me so that we can talk about what's really standing in your way and how we can work together to reach your social confidence goals. Find the link in the description to book that free connection call, or you can read more about my program by going directly to theintrovertedmisfit.com/coaching, and then you can book your free call with me from there. That's all for today's episode. As always, if you enjoyed this talk, please don't forget to hit that follow or subscribe button, leave a review and or a comment, whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts from, and share this podcast with a friend. Thanks for listening and have a great day.